Hey! So, happy quarantine, everybody. I hope you're all okay. And I hope you're staying safe, and I hope you're washing your hands and that you're not touching your face and that you're staying 2 meters apart. And yeah, okay, so for my lot, I'm getting some queries about error theory on the quarantine work that I've set you. So it seemed like a good idea just to go over that. Rather than me do all these individual emails, I'll just chat to you about that now. Oh, I touched my face. Okay, so error theory. So this is a weird one. This is Mackey. And what you're doing is you're combining cognitivism with anti-realism. And he gives you some reasons why he's an anti-realist. So let's start off with cognitivism. Cognitivism states that when it comes to moral judgments, states that moral judgments make claims about the world that can be true or false. They express beliefs about the way the world is. So if I say that murder is wrong, I'm making a claim about the way the world is, about some state of affairs in the world that can be true or false. We've also got anti-realism, and anti-realism is the theory that there are no mind-independent moral truths. So right, wrong, good, bad, these are things that don't exist outside the mind. They're just projections of the mind. Hume said they're like secondary qualities. So if you think about colour, if you believe in secondary qualities, colour exists in the mind, it doesn't exist objectively in the object itself, which is why people perceive it differently. Which leads nicely onto Mackey's argument from relativity. So one of his arguments for why there are no mind-independent moral truths is because of the relativity in moral codes. So not just between individuals, but huge parts of the globe have vastly different moral codes. So if you take monogamy, huge parts of the globe believe this is the right way to form partnerships, and huge parts of the globe practice polygamy and see that as morally right. So if there are mind-independent moral truths, then it seems that huge parts of the globe cannot access them. They can't get these mind-independent moral truths. So what's wrong with them? Can they not see them? Can they not see them like naturally through their five senses? Or to take Moore's idea that the moral truths are known through some other kind of sense, a sixth sense, something like an intuition, then what's wrong with people? Do their intuitions not work? These are not people who are trying to be immoral. It's just that there's these huge moral differences. Same with things like eating beef. Huge parts of the globe see that as morally wrong and huge parts of the globe don't. So either some of us have access to these moral truths and some don't, or they aren't there. These moral truths are not there, which is what Mackey says is the case. So another argument for his anti-realism is the argument from Queerness. Now, this is aimed more at the kind of the intuitionism idea that there are these strange moral properties, but they're not natural properties. You can't detect them with the five senses, but they're there. But we don't really know what they are, and it's all a bit mysterious, a bit queer. So that was a term that was used to describe something peculiar, something not normal. So with this idea of the argument from Queerness, the first issue is, well, how do we access these moral truths? How do we get them if they're not known through the five senses? So in terms of sort of epistemologically, how do I find them? It's very mysterious, this kind of intuition, sixth sense. And what exactly are they metaphysically? What are these properties that are somehow woven into the fabric of the universe and motivate us to act? That again doesn't make a huge amount of sense to him. So for Mackey, what we're doing is we're confusing our reactions to something and with there being a property in the object itself. So he calls it the pathetic fallacy. So if you look at something that disgusts you, so I think he uses the example of some kind of mouldy fungus or something, and you look at this mouldy fungus and you have this response of disgust, what we do is we then project that onto the object and see the object as having a property of disgusting. But the object is not disgusting. The disgust is us. It's not objectively disgusting. Disgusting is not an objective thing. Somebody else might not find it disgusting. So that's a mistake we're making. So if you combine those two things, what we say, our moral judgments, can be true or false, but what they're talking about doesn't exist, then by default, every moral judgment will be false. So if I say not respecting social isolation is wrong, false. Not respecting social isolation is right. also false. So it's like we're talking about the King of England. There is no King of England. So if I say the King of England is bald, that's false. But if I say the King of England is not bald, that's also false. So this is a problem we've got. Every moral judgment we make is in error. So that's a very, very quick 5-minute error theory by Mackey. Now, you can keep the anti-realism part, but you can make the claim that actually moral judgments aren't doing that. Moral judgments aren't making claims about the way the world is. They're not true or false. So, if you think about one of the reasons Hume says this, and Hume adopts non-cognitivism, which is the idea that moral judgments do not express beliefs, they express something else. They're not making claims about the way the world is. They cannot be true or false. So, this idea, I'm not making factual claims because factual claims are rational claims, but reason can't motivate us. So just having facts about the world doesn't motivate us, but moral judgments do. So if I say murder is wrong, then that motivates me to do something or not do something. But just knowing that it causes pain and suffering factually doesn't make me do anything. I have to desire for people not to suffer in order for that to motivate me. So for Hume, moral judgments are not beliefs, they're desires, or as we'll see, they're emotional responses. So this stems from the idea of Hume's fork. So you've got relations of ideas that are true by definition, can be known a priori, cannot be denied without contradiction. And you've got matters of fact that are known to the senses. And moral judgments are neither. So if I say murder is wrong, that's not true by definition. It can be denied without contradiction. I could say murder is right, and you may disagree with me, but my words actually do make sense. There's no logical problem there. But neither is the wrongness of murder, something I can experience through the senses. So Hume says that you can take any act that we describe as a vicious, like willful murder, and examine it in all its light. Look at it, smell it, taste it. Look, you cannot find the wrongness in that way because it's not out there. Okay, it's the wrongness is a feature of us, not a feature of the world, which also links into this is-all gap that we seem to always make this move from what is the case to what ought to be the case. So this does cause pain, fact. We ought not to do it, value. But there's no rational way to link those two things. It's an emotional move for Hume. So so Hume was one of the first ones to propose emotivism, but the one you need for your specification is A.J. Ayer. Now A.J. Ayer launches from the verification principle, which is really very similar to Hume's fork in where it's coming from. So for the verification principle is a criterion for how language can be factually significant and meaningful in a factual sense. And for that to be true, the proposition you're making either has to be true by definition, it has to be analytic, or it has to be verifiable in practice now, or in principle in some potential state. Now, verifiability means that some empirical evidence can count towards its truth or falsity. Now, again, murder is wrong is neither of those things. It's not analytic, it's not true by definition. There's nothing in the word murder that contains the word wrongness, but neither is it something you can get from the senses. So it's not factually significant for A.J. Ayer. So A.J. Ayer proposes emotivism. And for emotivism, moral judgments are emotional responses. They don't add anything factual at all. So for example, if I was to put my touch my face. If I put my hand in hot water and I pull it out and I go, ow, or I pull it out and I swear, then that's just an emotional response. There's no truth or falsity to that. I'm not making a factual claim. It may influence you not to put your hand in hot water, but that's what a moral judgment is. So if I say murder is wrong, that's like me saying murder and then swearing, or it's like me saying murder, boo. I'm having this emotional response to it. I think of it like almost like emojis. So if I say murder is wrong, smiley face, murder is wrong, sad face, murder is wrong, angry face, then I'm not making any change in the factual statement of murder. But the wrong bit is actually the emoji itself. So I might as well just say murder, happy face, murder, sad face, murder, angry face, because the is wrong is adding nothing more than the emoji. It's just an emotional response. So he says if I say you ought not to have stole, that's just like me saying you stole in a particular tone of horror. or writing you style with thick exclamation marks, and the thicker the exclamation marks, the more horrified I am. So yeah, that's really interesting, and it stems from Hume and describing the moral properties like secondary qualities. So the problem with this is, how can we have any moral discussion? So if I say, okay, veganism is right, and you say veganism is wrong, then really if we're just saying hooray to veganism, boo to veganism, we can't have any discussion. Hume can help us out a little bit here, because what Hume says is that most of our moral disagreements are actually factual disagreements. So the reason there are disagreements about veganism is because people actually disagree on the facts. So people don't actually have the information of how, for example, milk is produced, or what the effect on the animal is, or whether animals can feel pain. And if we all had the same factual information, our emotional responses would be the same. But if they're not, if we agree on the facts and our emotional responses are different, then there's no way that we can have any further discussion. That's the end of it. Okay. There's also the danger that it falls into moral nihilism, because if there's that whole idea of anti-realism, there are no objective moral truths, well, why do anything then? No, murder is wrong, well, there is no wrongness, so why bother? So again, that has huge implications for the idea of moral debate, moral progress. If we say, okay, we were wrong about slavery, we thought it was right and we made a mistake and we're progressing, but again, that relies on objective moral truths that we can be right or wrong about. It relies on the statement slavery is wrong being right, and the statement slavery is right being wrong. But those things require realism and cognitivism. So yeah, there's an issue there. Right, a bit of prescriptivism then by your man Hare. So don't drop your H's, otherwise you'll get mixed up with air and hair. So he agreed with the anti-realism bit, and he agreed with the non-cognitivism bit. So he thinks that moral judgments are not making claims about the way the world is, and there are no objective moral truths. But he thinks that moral judgments do more than just express emotion and influence. So moral judgments are not just saying like, ow, or boo, or hooray, or ugh, they're actually prescribing a course of action. So it's like saying shut the door. Now, shut the door is not true or false. I'm not making any claim about the way the world is, but I'm prescribing a course of action. I'm telling you what you should do. Also, I might be commending a particular course of action, so holding it up for praise, like a kind of a round of applause for that. So if I say charity is good, what I'm actually doing is prescribing that people give to charity and commending giving to charity without any factual content, but it's stronger than just influencing. And what Hare also does is suggest that there can be rationality to it. So even though we're not making claims about the way the world is, good is still a criterion that you should be applying consistently. So if you brought me a cup of tea and I said, oh, this is a good cup of tea, I ought to be able to explain why it's a good cup of tea. I'll give you my criterion. Now, I ought to then be able to universalise that. So if you brought me another identical cup of tea and I said, no, that's not a good cup of tea, then despite the fact the goodness of that cup of tea is not an objective criterion, it's still a standard that I should be applying consistently. And if I'm not, then I'm being irrational. And I ought to have relations between the claims that I'm making. So I ought to be able to explain to you why I'm calling something good, have relations between those ideas, and be able to universalise it. So in some ways, it allows more rationality than emotivism. But arguably, you've still got some problems with nihilism, moral progress, and so on. So, very, very quick, because I only just decided to do this in response to some emails. I'll upload it, hope it helps, and everybody stay safe, stay inside, stay at home, and we're going to get through this and it's all going to be good. Okay, take care everybody, bye!